St. Michael Jackson. You're in awe. It's Michael Jackson.
I always with my brothers and sisters in front of the television and saying, wow, that's amazing. Michael's coming on, Michael's coming on.
His moves are like words, and he's like an encyclopedia.
He never embraced color. He never really cared about that, but he never forgot where he came from either.
His hugs were the deepest and the most sincere, heartfelt hugs.
I loved him. I mean, you could tell in first meeting that he was a genius. It didn't take much thinking to figure that out.
He was an angel walking the planet.
Love is magical. That's how I feel. But there are worlds and worlds of ways to explain. To tell you, I love you.
Michael was just the loveliest soul. And I always left having had an experience with Michael where I felt that I came out the other side looking at the world differently, looking at myself differently.
I want to feel a little bit too. Yeah. We'll be ready.
The first time I met Michael, we were in rehearsals for Remember the Time, short film. And it was very, surreal, cosmic, just felt very natural to me.
I worked a long time in the industry, and then I got to go with Michael. I learned a lot of things from Michael. And there are things that I use every day in my work and in my life. That's the kind of guy he was. He'd share things with you if you were interested.
He called me out of the blue. I think it was the late 80s. And my goddaughter was at the house and she answered the phone. And she screamed across the house, which is not uncommon in my household. Uncle Kenny, some guy's on the phone saying it's Michael Jackson. So I quickly grabbed the phone. I was like, hello, and it was that familiar voice. Kenny? And I was like, Michael, I'm so sorry. He was like, that's okay. It happens to me all the time.
One of my first memories was in 1987 when he first came to the Smooth Criminal set. He walks over to me and he comes really, really close and he's looking at me and he goes, who did your makeup? And I said, I did. And he goes, I like your eyes. And I thought I was going to melt. That was my first encounter with Michael Jackson.
I got a call that I was on the short list for Michael. He was looking for musical directors. I went down, got on the keyboards to start playing, and we're waiting for Michael, and then MJ comes in, and as soon as he comes in, I'm playing, he just starts dancing immediately. And then he starts singing, and then we stop, we hug, embrace, talk a little bit, and play some more, and I would ask him to sing things. And he was so vibrant and passionate and happy. He looked great, he sounded great. We did a concert for about a half an hour.
Well, listen to the sound.
Yeah. I'm just doing that now for the singing. I met him and, he didn't speak a lot. He was very shy. And, a lot of people know he is, And he's always smiling at me, bowing to me, and saying, that was great. Over the years, he got more comfortable enough to speak with me more and spend some time with me.
All the dancers were like starstruck. I don't know how else to put it. It's easy to do.
But at the same time, within seconds of meeting him, he was a sweetheart. He was an absolute sweetheart and just a good guy. So I think that barrier got broken very, very quickly, and he was a very approachable man.
I remember early days when I was walking through the corridor of center staging, and this was just after I auditioned, and I was walking down there, and it was Michael and his bodyguard, and I didn't know whether to run into the nearest room and hide because I was like so nervous, or say hello. And so I just said to myself, I'm just gonna say hello. See what happens. So I went up to him and I said, oh, hi, how are you? And he goes, oh, really good. And he grabbed my hand and shook my hand. And he said, God bless you, I'll see you soon. And then he smiled. I was just happy for the rest of the day.
Awesome.
first concert I did with him at Madison Square Garden, you know, throughout the rehearsal, he would have these loud sonic hand claps. And me and Jonathan would be like, wow, these claps are loud, man. I mean, I can't even hear it. They're that loud. And do you know, I was so thankful for those hand claps because the first night at the Madison Square Garden, there were so many people screaming. I couldn't even barely hear myself. To hear actual time and meter, I was thankful for those hand claps. Obviously, he would know how it is in a live experience.
I want to be starting something. I play this little funky solo, and he puts his arms around me. The day before he died was the first time that I actually, after I did the solo, I didn't go back to my station. I stood there and I looked in his eyes and he looked back at me. And I mean, something went through me that was so powerful, and he smiled and I smiled back. And it was the most powerful feeling in the world. I mean, happy feeling.
See, they don't look that good anymore.
People probably don't think of him in terms of a funny person, but he was very, very funny. And I always, like, people have called him Peter Pan, but I always think he's like Peter Pan laughing his ass off.
We first moved to LA, and my son, you know, was like in pre-kindergarten. You know, and he was, you know, struggling a little bit, wasn't real happy. It came time for show and tell. And I said, gee, Dominic, what are you going to do for show and tell? He said, well, I want to bring Muscles. Muscles was Michael's boa. And I said, better think of something else. I'm scared to death of snakes, so I'm not bringing it. So I mentioned it to Michael, and he said, oh yeah, you can take the snake, go ahead. I said, Michael, how do you know I'm afraid of snakes? I'm not touching that snake. He said, well, I'll go. You'll go. I said, you can't go to show and tell. No, I will. We go to the school, the whole place all fell out. My son was like the hero forever. I couldn't believe anybody would do something like that. I mean, that, to me, that's amazing. That's going above and beyond a client or a friend. Or I mean, that's the kind of guy he was. You know, he was a real guy.
I remember one time he invited me to Neverland, and he said, pack a few things, and if you don't feel like going, you can stay. And I did. I think I stayed for 3 days. I remember sitting in 2 easy chairs, having a conversation, a creative conversation, and an elephant walked past the window. And Michael didn't even skip a beat, he just kept going, and I went, wait a minute. You know, that might have just been Lassie to you, but for me, that was like Africa just walked past the window. Can we take a moment and just, and he giggled, you know, he was lovely.
The mic is in the phone.
That'll be on fire.
Yeah, that'll be on fire.
And so we have to work out.
We would sit and look online, and I say, how long has it been since you've seen this? Like, oh, where did you get that? I'm like, everything's possible. You can find it online. Really? Like, yeah. Want to see 93, Mexico City? You know, and then we do that. And we listen to a lot of Janet Jackson music. We always talked about the knowledge, though. You said it's
I dance to it to this day. So I'm like,
oh, yeah.
I love it. It just gets inside of me.
We listen to just anything, you know, wherever the mood took us.
I love listening to you. Okay, good. Sad, yeah, me too.
As we were having our meetings, sometimes we would sit in a room for 6 or 8 hours talking about the show and the progression in great, great detail. And if he was referring to Thriller, he would begin quietly to sing it,
Yes.
illustrating what he wanted to happen in a certain chorus. And the room would just go quiet. You couldn't keep yourself conversational when Michael Jackson was singing, even under his breath.
It's going to be very operatic. Beautiful. Very operatic.
I think his thoughts came out through his songs, and the songs became his thoughts.
And then with Billie Jean, he does the routine with the hat, and he dances under this one single spotlight, and it was just him and me. All the rest of the band would stop, and we just go for like 3-4 minutes.
and then I played my heart and my soul